Did you ever hear the story, Alvie? I don't know if I put it in them notes or not, but it's in there someplace. You see, when the Virgin Madawaska was built, your grandfather and mine, and the Wilsons, and the Miss Thompsons, and the McFadgens, and the McClellans, they all went together, and they built it, and it would be a congregational church. Our people was Anglicans, the Wilsons were Baptists, the Thompsons were Presbyterians, and somebody else was Methodist, you see. So they built it. And the idea was that if it was an Anglican minister, he was to hold service. If it was a Baptist, he was to hold service, or whatever. Well, anyway, it wasn't too long till the bishop come to visit Grandpa and Grandma. And he was going to confirm Liza and Fanny. He got told smartly that he wasn't getting into that good church. So, wasn't having it there. Well, Grandpa says, that's fine, we'll not squabble about it. But he says, so anyway, Liza and Fanny was confirmed here, the bishop said.
Yes.
We'll not stand back for a building. He said, we'll confirm
The
it.
Bishop Highlander.
I imagine so. Well, that went on. Finally, the Wilsons were Baptists. But the Wilsons were, now fine people, don't get me wrong. But if you come along and they didn't know you and you were going to preach a little different religion, they'd join you. You remember them, Alvie. Remember they joined Benton or Woods or whatever it would be. They were sort of, I guess we call them joiners then. Anyway, they liked, they were partial to evangelistic religion, you see. And anyway, this man Bell come along. And it was one of the later years too. And they got taken up with him quite well. So they said Sunday they'd have service up in the church with Bell. They had as much right as the next fellow to have their service there. And they went up to have service. When they got there, John Thompson had locked the church.
He got word of it.
He knew it was, well, sure, they'd advertised it around so that they'd have a congregation. And he locked the church. From then on, they considered that a Presbyterian church. Yeah.
How far back would that be?
That must have been well back. That must have been well back, about in the 1890s, I would think, because John Thompson, I don't know when he died. I have it someplace, but but then it sort of was more Presbyterians, I guess, you know, and then it went from there to United Church. There's a book about the Catholic Church, and I wish I could think of the name of it. When I was in the hospital, Dr. Beula brought it in to me. And it was fantastic. It was a whole history of how this church at Griffith was built, and it tells about Grandpa Strong walking to Griffith with panes of glass in his hands for the windows.
Is that right?
And it tells about old Adam McClellan going up and plastering, how he did the plastering and that stuff.
All that information.
And I know that when I got it, Dr. Burwell warned me. Now he says, don't you let the cart get a hold of that. He says, or let it out of your sight, because he says, and the nurse, one of the nurses asked me about it, and I said, well, you'll have to. It's going from me back to Dr. Burwell because I don't know where he got it. And she said, well, if I'm going to come in and sit in here at night and read it, but she didn't because I put it under my pillow. Because he was such a fine old man, I didn't want to lose his book on him.
Oh, sure, he was a fine old man.
He was a fine man, wasn't he?